I spent 2.5 years planning my dream wedding. Every detail was carefully thought out. From the romantic beachfront venue in Charleston, South Carolina, to the exquisite menu featuring all my favorite dishes. Andrew, my fiancé, and I had been in love for nearly 4 years, and I had always believed we would have a happy marriage. Everything seemed perfect, except for one major issue. Andrew's parents had never accepted me. His mother, Vivian, always carried herself with an air of elegance and coldness. The first time we met, she scanned me from head to toe, as if evaluating whether I was worthy of joining their family. His father, William, was quieter but always distant. He spent most of his time bragging about his investments and the exclusive clubs he was a member of. I didn't come from a prestigious family. My parents were hardworking people, and I was proud of that. I had no interest in elite circles, extravagant dinners, or luxury trips meant for showing off. I loved Andrew for who he was, not for his family or wealth. But to Vivian and William, that didn't matter. They always believed their son could find someone better. Andrew used to tell me not to worry. They'll come around. He reassured me every time I expressed my concerns, but I knew it was an empty promise. Over the years, they had never changed the way they saw me, and I was beginning to realize that I wasn't just marrying Andrew. I was stepping into a family that never wanted me there. Still, I tried. We sent out invitations, picked out wedding flowers, tried on dresses, and sampled cakes. I spent hours meticulously planning every detail of our big day, while Vivian remained indifferent to everything I did. But that didn't stop me from looking forward to the moment I would officially become Andrew's wife. And then, just 1 week before the wedding, everything fell apart. I still remember that afternoon vividly, exactly 1 week before our wedding, when Andrew showed up with a slightly forced smile. "My parents just planned a trip," he said, avoiding my gaze. I set my teacup down, frowning slightly. "Now?" "Yeah, just a short getaway to Palm Beach. They said it's a family tradition. A little vacation before someone gets married." I had never heard him mention this tradition before, and if it was so important, why hadn't they brought it up earlier? "Why so last minute?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Andrew shrugged. "They just want to spend some time with me before everything changes. You know, like parents wanting one last moment with their son before he becomes a married man." It sounded reasonable, but something felt off. I stared at him, searching for any sign of hesitation, and just as I feared, Andrew avoided my eyes. "Can I come?" I asked, half joking. He laughed, but it wasn't genuine. "You know my mom wouldn't like that." A wave of coldness washed over me. Of course, Vivian would never allow me to come. In her eyes, I had never been part of their family. "How long?" I asked. 4 days. Leaving Thursday, back on Sunday. I clenched my hands under the table. 4 days, right before the wedding? Strange. But I didn't want to turn it into an argument, especially since Andrew already seemed set on going. I smiled and nodded. "Then go, but come back soon." Andrew kissed my forehead, as if reassuring me, then quickly left. A few days later, he left for the trip, and by Saturday night, everything collapsed. I was sitting on my couch, reviewing the guest list one last time, when I got a call from Sophie, my best friend. "Joe," her voice was tense. "He's here." I frowned. "Who?" "Andrew." My heart skipped a beat. "What? What do you mean?" "I'm at the Royal Lounge, a high-end bar in downtown Palm Beach. I swear, Andrew is here, and you won't believe who he's with." My throat went dry. "Who?" "His parents and a girl. Younger than you, blonde, looks rich and stuck up." Heat spread through my body. "Are you sure it's him?" "I saw him with my own eyes, Joe. Not only that, but all 3 of them, Vivian, William, and that girl, are laughing and chatting with Andrew like they're a perfect family. And he doesn't look uncomfortable or anything." The world around me blurred. "Did you see them doing anything inappropriate?" I asked, my voice tight. Sophie hesitated. Andrew put his hand on her waist, as they walked into the VIP section. I gripped my phone tightly. "Joe?" Sophie's voice was filled with concern. "I'm here. Do you want me to do anything? Take pictures, record them, confront him?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. If Sophie had seen them, chances were other people had too. If this was really what I thought it was, I needed proof. "I need evidence," I whispered. "Take pictures, videos, anything you can." "I got it," Sophie said immediately. "I'll do it now." I sat frozen on the couch, staring at my phone as if it could somehow give me a reasonable explanation. So this was the real reason for the sudden trip. Not to spend time with their son before the wedding, but to introduce him to a new candidate, a girl they deemed more suitable than me. Who was she? An old acquaintance? A family friend? Or someone they had deliberately set him up with? I closed my eyes, trying to suppress the anger rising inside me. If this was real, if Andrew was truly involved in this, then it wasn't just my wedding that was over. My entire life was about to change forever. I didn't sleep at all that night. My phone sat on the table, filled with Sophie's messages, along with a few hastily taken photos. The quality wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough to recognize Andrew and that girl sitting close together, laughing like they had known each other for ages. In another photo, Vivian was resting her hand affectionately on the girl's shoulder, as if she had already welcomed her into the family. I couldn't believe it. But anger wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed solid, undeniable proof. The next morning, I called Mark Reynolds, a private investigator Sophie had once hired when her sister suspected she was being scammed in business. He picked up on the first ring, his voice calm and professional. "I need to investigate someone," I said bluntly. Mark wasn't surprised. "Tell me what you know, and I'll take care of the rest." I sent him the location of the bar, the hotel where Andrew and his family were staying, and the photos Sophie had taken. I wanted to know who that girl was, why she was with Andrew and his family, and most importantly, what they had been doing throughout the trip. Mark promised to update me as soon as he had anything. 48 hours passed in absolute tension. I didn't text or call Andrew. I waited. And then, on Tuesday morning, my phone rang. "Mark, I have information." An hour later, I sat in my usual cafe with Mark, my stomach in knots. He placed a folder in front of me, along with a USB drive. "I think you'll want to see for yourself." I opened the folder. The first page contained the personal details of the girl. Her name was Lauren Davis, 26 years old, the daughter of a wealthy businessman in Florida. Private school education, involved in multiple social events. The kind of person Vivian and William would undoubtedly consider worthy of their family. I turned to the next page. The first image. Andrew and Lauren sitting close together at an upscale restaurant. Far too intimate to be dismissed as coincidence. The second image. Vivian talking to Lauren at the bar, with William nodding along as if agreeing to a plan. The third image. Andrew and Lauren walking out of a jewelry store together. My stomach twisted. "There's more," Mark said, sliding the USB toward me. "I have a few video clips, especially this one." He opened his laptop, plugged in the USB, and pressed play. On the screen, Vivian and Lauren sat in the hotel bar, cocktails in hand, their voices clear through the hidden microphone Mark had used. Vivian leaned toward Lauren, speaking with absolute confidence. "As long as you do your part well, I'll handle the rest. Josephine was a mistake. She doesn't belong in this family. We just need to make Andrew see that." Lauren let out a soft laugh. I have a feeling he already has. I felt my entire body freeze. Mark paused the video, looking at me with sympathy. "Vivian and William didn't just take Andrew on a trip. They orchestrated this. Lauren wasn't a coincidence. They planned for her to replace you." My heart turned cold. I didn't know what I had expected. Maybe an explanation, a possibility that this was all a misunderstanding. But no, everything was crystal clear. Andrew hadn't just been led into this. He had willingly participated. I stared at the laptop screen. This wasn't just about a trip. This was a carefully planned betrayal. I clenched my fists. If you want to dig deeper, Mark offered, I can. I shook my head, taking a deep breath. No need, I have enough. Enough to know I could never marry Andrew. Enough to realize this family would never accept me. And most importantly, enough to make sure they knew I wouldn't quietly disappear. Their game was over. They just didn't know it yet. I didn't have to wait long. Andrew returned on Tuesday night, a day later than planned, and I knew why. He didn't want to face me. When he stepped into my apartment, the air immediately grew heavy. He lingered near the door, as if ready to leave at any moment. "Josephine," he said, his voice tense. "We need to talk." I nodded calmly, already knowing exactly what was coming. I pulled out a chair, motioning for him to sit. Andrew hesitated before lowering himself onto the seat across from me, his eyes avoiding mine. "I'm listening," I said, keeping my tone light enough not to alarm him, but sharp enough to make him uneasy. He exhaled, rubbing his hands together. "I think we should take a break." I stared at him. "A break?" Andrew nodded, still avoiding my gaze. "I just think maybe we need to take some time to think. Everything is moving so fast, and I'm not sure if this is the right decision." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I smiled. "How interesting," I said, reaching for a folder on the table and placing it in front of him. "Because I just got some information about your trip." Andrew's entire body tensed. "Take a look." I gestured. He opened the folder. The first image, Andrew and Lauren at the restaurant, sitting so close their shoulders nearly touched. The second image, Vivian smiling at Lauren in the bar, an expression full of meaning. The third image, Andrew and Lauren leaving a jewelry store together. I watched as horror slowly spread across his face while he flipped through the pages, eventually reaching the last section. A transcript of text messages Mark had retrieved from Lauren's phone. Messages from Vivian. "Just spend time with him. We'll take care of the rest." Andrew swallowed hard, flipping to the final page. A screenshot from the video at the bar where his mother promised Lauren that this wedding would never happen. I crossed my arms, watching him. "Do you have anything to say?" I asked, my voice steady. Andrew set the folder down, his hands shaking. "Josephine, I can explain." I raised an eyebrow. "Explain? Explain how your mother arranged a meeting with another woman right before our wedding? Or explain how you let it happen so easily?" His hands clenched into fists, his expression flustered. "I didn't do anything on purpose," he blurted out. "I just wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want to make my mother angry. I didn't want to cause trouble." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Keep the peace?" I repeated, my gaze sharp. "You think letting your family sabotage your own wedding is keeping the peace?" Andrew fell silent. And at that moment, the door swung open. Vivian walked in as if she owned the place, followed closely by William. In her hand was a notebook, probably my wedding planner, something that no longer meant anything. "Can we talk like adults?" Vivian said, her voice carrying its usual authority. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Oh, you want to talk? Great. I have all evening." She glanced at the folder on the table, her eyes narrowing slightly. "This is ridiculous. Josephine, you're overreacting." I let out a light laugh. "Overreacting? You mean I'm not supposed to react when my fiancé's mother hires another woman to replace me right before my wedding?" William spoke coldly. "We only want what's best for Andrew. We don't think you're the right long-term choice." A cold fury spread through me. I turned to Andrew. "Did you know about this?" He was silent for too long. And that said everything. I took a deep breath, locking eyes with Vivian. "You think you get to choose your son's wife?" She gave a small, dismissive smile. "I'm just making sure my son doesn't make a mistake." My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it. A message from Sophie. "Lauren is still in Palm Beach. She just bragged to her friends that Andrew's family made sure this wedding would never happen. I set my phone down and looked directly at Vivian. "Well, I have good news for you," I said, my voice calm but carrying the weight of a verdict. "You got what you wanted." I stood up, grabbed the folder, and slid it toward Andrew. "This wedding is off." Andrew's face went pale. "Josephine!" "I'm done, Andrew." I held his gaze for a long moment, letting my words sink in. "I'm not marrying someone who can't stand up for himself. I'm not marrying into a family I'll have to fight against for the rest of my life." I turned to Vivian and William. "Congratulations, Andrew is free of me. But let's see if anyone actually wants to be a part of a family like this." And with that, I walked out of my own apartment, leaving Andrew, Vivian, and William standing there in silence. I slammed the door behind me, taking a deep breath, but the air felt thick. I was shaking, but not from sadness. There were no more tears, no more pain. Only a quiet, simmering rage, pulsing through every part of me. I couldn't stop here. I needed to know the full truth. I grabbed my phone and dialed Sophie. She answered on the first ring. "You okay, Joe?" "I'm fine," I said firmly. "But I need to know more. Lauren, what else did she say?" Sophie hesitated for a second, then sighed. "Joe, you won't believe this." "Try me." Last night, Lauren was bragging to her friends that Vivian paid her to go on this trip. And I don't just mean covering flights and hotels. There was cash, gifts, and a promise of a secure future if she did her part right. I felt my chest tighten. Her part? "Yeah, she said Vivian promised that if she could get Andrew interested, she'd make sure Lauren had a place in the family. Basically, they wanted to swap you out for her." I clenched my jaw. Everything became painfully clear. This wasn't just a casual trip. This wasn't just some new friend Andrew happened to meet. This had been orchestrated from the start. "You're sure about this, Sophie?" "Joe, I recorded it." I went still for a few seconds. She continued. "I left my phone on the table when Lauren was talking. I got her voice, crystal clear, talking about how Vivian promised to push you aside. I put my phone on speaker, opened my laptop, and downloaded the recording from Sophie. Pressing play, Lauren's voice came through, clear, undeniable. "Vivian told me Andrew wouldn't marry Josephine. She said I just had to make him hesitate a little. Once the wedding was called off, she'd take care of the rest." Silence. I let out a quiet laugh, but inside I was burning. I stopped the recording and took a deep breath. "I think," I said slowly, "it's time Andrew heard this. I didn't warn him before showing up at his place. I didn't want to give him time to prepare a lie." When the door opened, Andrew froze at the sight of me. "Joe," he frowned. "I thought we were done talking." I gave a cold smile and pulled out my phone. "Oh no, we're not done, Andrew." I pressed play. Lauren's voice echoed through his apartment. "Just had to make him hesitate a little. Once the wedding was called off, she'd take care of the rest." Andrew's face went from pale to deep red. What is this?" he stammered. "Proof." I slipped my phone back into my pocket. "Were you going to tell me your mother paid Lauren to seduce you? Or were you just going to stay quiet, like every other time?" Andrew pressed his lips together but said nothing. I stepped into the house, leaving the door wide open behind me. "And you know what's funny?" I tilted my head. "The whole world is about to find out about this." I pulled out a new folder and slammed it onto the table. "This is everything: photos, messages, payment receipts from your mother to Lauren." I crossed my arms. "So, Andrew, do you have anything left to say?" He swallowed hard. "Joe, I didn't know." I laughed. "You didn't know? You didn't think it was suspicious when Lauren conveniently showed up right before our wedding? You didn't realize your mother was manipulating you?" He closed his eyes, rubbing his forehead. "Oh, I didn't want to disappoint her," he muttered. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you didn't care about hurting me as long as your mother was happy?" I crossed my arms tighter. He stayed silent. And that was my answer. I took a step back, as if I was finally seeing him clearly for the first time. "You never stood by me," I said slowly. "You let them do this, and you didn't stop them." Andrew didn't argue. I shook my head and picked up the folder. "Fine," I said, a faint cold smile on my lips. "If you won't pick a side, I'll pick for you." Andrew frowned. "What does that mean?" I turned toward the door, glancing at him one last time. "It means," I said, my voice sharp, "your mother is about to regret messing with me." And with that, I walked out, leaving Andrew drowning in his own silence. I didn't just walk away quietly. If Vivian thought she could manipulate everything to her liking without consequences, she was wrong. I spent the entire night planning, and the next morning I sent a group message to Andrew, Vivian, William, and Lauren. "We need an emergency meeting at the wedding venue at 2 p.m. If you want to clear things up before it's too late, be there." I didn't explain further. I wanted them to worry, to ask themselves 1,000 questions. And I knew for sure that Vivian wouldn't be able to resist an invitation like this. The wedding venue was supposed to be the place where I exchanged vows with Andrew. But today, it was just a stage where I would expose everything they had done. Vivian and William arrived first, walking in with their usual air of superiority, as if they were still in control. Lauren followed shortly after, her wavy blonde hair perfectly styled, her eyes glinting with smug confidence. And then Andrew walked in. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. But I didn't care anymore. I didn't waste time. Once they were all seated, I turned on the projector. The first image appeared on the screen, Vivian sitting at the hotel bar in Palm Beach, speaking to Lauren. "As long as you do your part well, I'll handle the rest." Vivian stiffened. William leaned back in his chair, his face hardening. Andrew leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on the screen. The next image, Lauren and Andrew outside a jewelry store, laughing and talking closely. Lauren let out a small laugh, crossing her legs, her voice full of defiance. "So what? You're just trying to turn this into some unnecessary scandal?" I raised an eyebrow and pressed play on the next video clip. On the screen, Lauren's voice rang out, chillingly clear. "Vivian told me Andrew wouldn't marry Josephine. She said I just had to make him hesitate a little. Once the wedding was called off, she'd take care of the rest." Silence filled the room. Lauren froze, but tried to maintain her composure. "You have no right to invade my privacy." I laughed, shaking my head. "Privacy? You tried to destroy my wedding, and now you want to talk about privacy?" Andrew lowered his head, rubbing his forehead. I turned to him. "Did you know about this?" He didn't answer immediately, and that alone was an answer. Vivian still wasn't ready to back down. "Josephine, don't be so emotional. We were simply introducing Andrew to better options. What's so wrong about that?" I clenched my fists, locking eyes with her. "What's wrong is that you don't get to make that decision for your son. What's wrong is that you can't respect his choices. And most importantly, you thought I would just sit back and tolerate it." William finally spoke, his voice low and firm. "We were only thinking about Andrew's long-term future." Andrew lifted his head, looking at his father. "Long-term future?" His voice wavered. "By arranging for me to betray the woman I was supposed to marry?" Vivian's grip tightened on the straps of her purse, but she said nothing. I turned to Andrew, my voice calm but sharp. "Do you see it now, Andrew? This is how they treat you. Like a puppet, a piece on a chessboard for them to move however they please." Andrew swallowed hard, but still didn't say a word in my defense. Lauren clicked her tongue, then let out a quiet chuckle. "Well, either way, you're not really a problem anymore." She shrugged. "Andrew's already made his choice." I gave her a small, knowing smile and nodded. "You're right." I turned to Andrew, holding his gaze for a few seconds. "You had so many chances to stand by me," I said, my voice void of anger, filled only with pure disappointment. "And you never did." Andrew opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. I shut my laptop and picked up my bag. "Then go ahead and do what you do best, Andrew," I said, my voice light but weighted with meaning. "Stay silent and let your mother decide for you." And with that, I walked out of the room without looking back. No more wedding, no more Andrew, no more toxic family. And for the first time in months, I felt freer than ever. I left the wedding venue without a single glance back. No final words, no further explanations. Everything was already crystal clear. I didn't need to hear any more justifications. What I had done wasn't just canceling a wedding. I had freed myself from a toxic family, a man who never had the courage to stand up for me, and a future I had almost been trapped in. A few hours later, I sat in my apartment, reading messages from friends and family, people who had just heard that the wedding was off. Some were shocked, some were furious on my behalf, but what surprised me most was that nearly everyone said I had made the right decision. And when I opened Instagram, I knew immediately that the drama wasn't over. Lauren, just as I had expected, couldn't keep quiet. She posted a selfie at a luxury bar holding a glass of wine, with a caption dripping with arrogance. "Not everyone is meant for high society. Some people simply don't meet the standards." In the comments, people from Andrew's social circle were already asking questions, trying to figure out what had happened. Some defended me, some tried to stay neutral, but regardless of what they said, the rumors had already spread. I sighed, but not out of sadness, just sheer exhaustion at their shamelessness. Within a week, Andrew's family's reputation collapsed in a way they never saw coming. The high-profile wedding guests, the influential business and social figures, began to distance themselves from Vivian and William as the truth unraveled. Turns out, not everyone approved of a family that treated marriage like a business transaction. Some of Andrew's closest friends even cut ties with him, not because they were particularly loyal to me, but because they didn't want to associate with a man who had no backbone, someone who let his mother dictate his life. Vivian desperately tried to regain control of the situation. She hosted a private event to show that their family was still intact, but no one cared anymore. No one wanted to be labeled as someone who supported a staged, manipulative scheme to break up a wedding. And Lauren? She lasted exactly 3 weeks with Andrew. 3 weeks. At first, she was by his side constantly, enjoying the attention from those curious about the scandal. But when she realized Andrew had no control over his family's finances, when she understood there was no extravagant wedding, no elite status to claim, she left without a word. Andrew was left alone, with a disgraced family and a life that was no longer his to control. And me? I didn't spend time crying over what was lost because I lost nothing at all. Instead, on the day I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I did something I never thought I would. I threw a non-wedding party. My friends showed up in full force, bringing wine, cake, and glamorous outfits as if we were attending the most extravagant celebration. There were no tears, no regrets, just laughter, music, and an overwhelming sense of freedom. I wore a deep blue silk dress, the one I had chosen to replace my wedding gown, and stood in the middle of my living room, a glass of wine in hand. Sophie looked at me and smiled. "How does it feel?" I thought for a moment, then grinned wider than ever. I've never felt better. And that wasn't a lie. I had escaped a disastrous marriage before it even began. I no longer had to fight for a family that would never respect me. I no longer had to be with a man who lacked the courage to stand up for his own love. I lost nothing. In fact, I had just reclaimed everything. As I cut into the wedding cake, the only thing left from what had been planned. I didn't feel heartache or bitterness. I laughed, scooped a bite with my fork, and savored it. "Sweeter than any wedding," I murmured. And as the music played, as I danced with my friends under the glittering lights, I realized the most important thing of all. I had won. Not because I had gotten revenge on Vivian or humiliated Lauren, not because Andrew was left in the loneliness he deserved, but because I had chosen myself. And that was the greatest victory of my life. Josephine's story is not just a lesson in love and betrayal, it's proof of the power of knowing your worth. In real life, many people stay trapped in toxic relationships, afraid of being alone or unwilling to walk away after investing so much time and emotion. But the most important thing isn't holding on to someone who doesn't deserve you. It's having the courage to let go when necessary. Sometimes, losing what you thought you needed is exactly how you find yourself in a better future. What do you think about Josephine's story? If you were in her shoes, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more compelling stories about family, love, and life's valuable lessons.